Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to raise a toast to my son Blake Harrington III and his fiancée, Victoria Montgomery. The crystal champagne flute slipped from Blake's fingers, crashing dramatically onto the marble floor of the Harrington Mansion's grand ballroom. 300 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him, including those of news reporters and society photographers who were already capturing his stunned expression for tomorrow's headlines. "What the hell did you just say?" Blake hissed through a frozen smile, grabbing his father's elbow and pulling him slightly aside while the crowd murmured. William Harrington II maintained his public smile, though his eyes were cold steel. "Smile, son. You're engaged as of 15 seconds ago." "I've never even met this woman," Blake growled under his breath, scanning the room for someone who might be his apparent fiancée. "Third table from the left, blue dress. She's been informed about 10 minutes longer than you have," his father muttered before turning back to the crowd. "Please excuse my son's excitement. Sometimes good news can be overwhelming." The crowd laughed politely as waitstaff rushed to clean up the broken glass. Blake's eyes found the woman his father had indicated. Tall, elegant, with carefully styled auburn hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She raised her glass slightly, in acknowledgement, looking every bit as trapped as he felt. At 35, Blake had built Harrington Industries from his father's crumbling legacy into a tech empire through sheer ruthlessness and brilliance. Women threw themselves at him. Men feared him. And now his father had played the one card Blake never expected, using him as a bargaining chip in a corporate merger. The Montgomery-Harrington Union will create the largest integrated tech media conglomerate in the Western Hemisphere, his father continued to the captivated audience. The wedding will take place in 6 months at the Montgomery estate. Later, in his father's study, Blake slammed the door so hard that the vintage scotch bottles rattled on the bar cart. "Have you lost your mind? You can't just announce my engagement to a complete stranger." William Harrington poured himself a drink with steady hands. "I just did. And unless you want to watch Harrington Industries collapse, you'll go along with it." "What are you talking about?" Blake demanded. "We're broke, son." The words fell like stones. The Rivera project failed. Investment is drying up. The Montgomery merger is the only thing that can save us, and they made the marriage a non-negotiable condition. Blake fell into a leather chair, his world collapsing. "There has to be another way. If there is, you have 6 months to find it," his father said, sliding a thick contract across the desk. "Otherwise, you're getting married." Mia Lawson was arranging the last of the day's flowers when her phone buzzed with a news alert. She wiped her hands on her apron and glanced at the screen. Breaking. Tech titan. Blake Harrington engaged to media heiress Victoria Montgomery. "No way," Mia muttered, clicking on the article. A photo showed an impossibly handsome man with dark hair and a slightly stunned expression, standing next to an older man who was beaming at a crowd. "Everything okay?" her co-worker Ruby asked, locking up the register. "Just celebrity gossip," Mia said, putting her phone away and returning to the eye. Lilies. At 28, with an art degree hanging uselessly in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, Mia had more pressing concerns than rich people getting married, like how to pay this month's rent while pursuing her dream of illustrating children's books. "See you tomorrow," Ruby called as she left. "Bye," Mia replied, not looking up from her work. The bell above the door jangled a moment later. "Sorry, we're closed," Mia called without looking up. "I need flowers." The deep, authoritative voice made her look up. Mia froze, lilies forgotten. Standing in her shop was the man from the news article, Blake Harrington himself, looking decidedly disheveled compared to his photo. His tie was loosened, hair slightly mussed, and his eyes looked desperate. "You're him," she blurted out. "The engaged guy. From the news." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, then calculation. "You recognize me. Your engagement was just announced. It's trending." Mia pointed to her phone. Blake Harrington's perfect jawline tightened. Wonderful, he muttered sarcastically. Mia crossed her arms. Congratulations, although you don't look very happy for someone who just got engaged. Their eyes met, and something in her frank assessment seemed to catch him off guard. He studied her for a moment. Her paint-stained jeans, the wild flowers tattooed on her forearm, the way she didn't seem impressed by him. I need wedding flowers, he finally said. The worst you can possibly create. Mia blinked. I'm sorry? I need arrangements so hideous that they would make a bride reconsider her choice of groom. He pulled out a black credit card and placed it on the counter. Money is no object. Let me get this straight, Mia said slowly. You want me to deliberately create ugly flower arrangements? For your own wedding? Blake's face broke into an unexpected smile that transformed his features entirely. He suddenly looked younger, almost mischievous. Yes, miss. Lawson. Mia Lawson. She couldn't help but return his smile, though she was thoroughly confused. Miss Lawson, he continued, leaning against the counter. I need your help to sabotage a wedding that should never happen. My wedding, specifically. Why me? Mia asked, genuinely puzzled. There are probably professional wedding saboteurs for rich people. That has to be a thing, right? Blake laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise even him. I need someone with no connection to my world, someone genuine. His eyes held hers. Someone like you. Mia should have thrown him out. Should have. Told him she wasn't interested in whatever bizarre rich person drama he was involved in. Instead, she found herself asking, what exactly would this job entail? Have dinner with me tomorrow night, and I'll explain everything. He scribbled an address on a business card and slid it across the counter. 7 o'clock. After he left, Mia called Ruby immediately. You will not believe who just came into the shop, she began, staring at the business card in her hand. Blake Harrington III, CEO, Harrington Industries. Who? Ruby asked. Mia glanced at the stack of rejection letters from publishers on her desk, then at her past due rent notice. Possibly my ticket out of debt, she replied, or the beginning of the biggest mistake of my life. Mia spent too long staring at her closet the next evening. What exactly does one wear to dinner with a billionaire who wants to sabotage his own wedding? This is insane, she muttered, finally settling on a vintage emerald dress that her grandmother had given her, the only semi-formal item she owned. I'm just going to hear him out, that's all. The address led her to a rooftop restaurant with a spectacular view of Manhattan. The maitre d' took one look at her name and whisked her past a line of waiting customers to a private table where Blake Harrington sat studying a document. When he looked up, something shifted in his expression. He stood, all 6 foot something of perfectly tailored suit, and for a brief moment seemed genuinely caught off guard. Miss Lawson, he said, recovering quickly. Thank you for coming. Hard to refuse such a mysterious invitation, Mia replied, taking her seat and trying not to feel intimidated by the array of silverware before her. Blake signaled to a waiter, who immediately appeared with champagne. I ordered for us. I hope you don't mind. Actually, I do, Mia said, surprising herself with her boldness. I'd like to see a menu, please, she told the waiter, who looked to Blake for approval before complying. A smile tugged at the corner of Blake's mouth. Not many people contradict me. Maybe that's your problem, Mia said, scanning the menu and nearly choking at the prices. People should be contradicted occasionally. Keeps them honest. After they ordered, Mia choosing the least expensive item that still sounded delicious, Blake leaned forward, his expression becoming serious. I assume you've researched me by now. Mia nodded. Blake Harrington III, tech billionaire, America's most ruthless bachelor according to last month's Business Insider. Now suddenly engaged to Victoria Montgomery, heiress to Montgomery Media. The internet is very excited about it. And what the internet doesn't know, Blake continued, is that the engagement is nothing but a business arrangement orchestrated by our parents. The Montgomerys want access to our technology patents, and apparently my father needs their cash. Neither Victoria nor I have any desire to get married. Have you tried, I don't know, telling people that? Mia asked, taking a sip of her water. Blake's laugh was short and humorless. There's a contract. If either of us backs out directly, both companies suffer. But there's a loophole. If Victoria chooses to end the engagement because she doubts my suitability as a husband, the merger can still proceed under renegotiated terms. And that's where I come in, Mia guessed as their appetizers arrived. I need someone to help me appear completely incompatible with Victoria's lifestyle. Someone genuine, unpolished. You want me to be your anti-etiquette coach? Mia interrupted, raising an eyebrow. Not exactly. Blake took a breath. I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend. Mia choked on her risotto. Excuse me? Just hear me out, Blake continued quickly. Victoria comes from old money. Very traditional. Very concerned with appearances. If she believes I've been unfaithful, but you wouldn't be. You're not actually dating her. A technicality that won't matter to her family, Blake countered. I need you to appear at several events with me, to create enough gossip that Victoria will have a socially acceptable reason to break off the engagement. Mia studied him. Why me? You could hire an actress, or ask one of your supermodel friends. Because everyone in my circle is known. The Montgomerys would see through it immediately. His eyes held hers. I need someone real. Someone they won't expect. Someone expendable, Mia translated flatly. Something flickered across Blake's face. Perhaps guilt. I prefer to think of it as mutually beneficial. You'd be well compensated. How well? The question slipped out before Mia could stop it. Blake named a figure that made her grip the edge of the table. That would pay off my student loans, and give me time to work on my illustrations without worrying about rent, she said, almost to herself. Your illustrations? Mia hesitated. I'm an artist. I want to illustrate children's books. She rarely told people about her dreams, but something in Blake's attentive gaze made the truth spill out. I've been trying to get published for 2 years. Blake nodded thoughtfully. So we both have something to gain. 6 weeks of your time, and then you're free to pursue your career without financial constraints. And all I have to do is pretend to be madly in love with you, make a complete fool of myself in front of New York's elite, and then get publicly dumped when your plan succeeds? Mia challenged. You won't be dumped, Blake corrected. We'll amicably part ways after Victoria breaks the engagement. Your reputation will remain intact. Mia laughed. My reputation? I'm a nobody. Not for long, Blake said, his eyes serious. Once you're seen with me, every detail of your life will be scrutinized. Are you prepared for that? Mia hadn't considered that angle. I don't know. Take the night to think about it, Blake suggested as their main courses arrived. But I need your answer by tomorrow. Our first event would be the Montgomery Foundation Gala this weekend. The rest of dinner passed with Blake asking surprisingly thoughtful questions about her life, her art, her family. It was almost as if he were genuinely interested. Though Mia reminded herself this was a man who closed billion-dollar deals for a living. Making people feel important was probably second nature to him. When the check came, which Blake handled without letting her see the total, he walked her outside to where a sleek black car waited. My driver will take you home, he said, opening the door for her. I can take the subway, Mia protested. It's nearly midnight, Blake countered. Humor me. As she settled into the plush leather seat, Blake leaned down to meet her eyes. I know this is an unusual proposition, Miss Lawson, but I think we could help each other. I'll think about it, she promised. One more thing, Blake said, reaching into his jacket and pulling out a business card, different from the one he'd given her yesterday. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. "My personal number, in case you have questions." As the car pulled away, Mia turned the card over. In precise handwriting, it read, "Thank you for being the only person who didn't congratulate me on my engagement." Back in her apartment, Mia kicked off her shoes and called Ruby, who answered despite the late hour. Well, was he as gorgeous? In proper lighting? Did he propose a murder scheme? Are you going to be on Dateline next week? He wants me to pretend to be his girlfriend to get out of his arranged marriage, Mia blurted out. Ruby's silence lasted 3 seconds. Girl, what romance novel did you fall into? I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy, it is crazy, Ruby interrupted. Rich people are wild. Please tell me you said no. Mia sank onto her sofa, staring at the amount Blake had offered. It would change everything for her. I said I'd think about it. Mia, this man is asking you to enter a fake relationship that will put you in the public eye and potentially make you the villain in New York's social scene. What happens when it's over, and you're just the nobody who tried to break up the society wedding of the year? Mia sighed. That's what I've been thinking about. And? Mia walked to her desk and picked up her latest rejection letter. Then she glanced at her illustrations pinned to the wall, the ones she poured her heart into between flower arrangements and scraping by. And maybe I'm tired of being a nobody, she whispered. Mia's finger hovered over the call button for the 5th time that morning. The flower shop was quiet, giving her too much time to second-guess herself. Finally, she pressed Blake's number, holding her breath. He answered on the first ring. Blake Harrington. It's Mia Lawson. I'll do it. There was a brief pause. You're sure? No, she admitted with a nervous laugh. But I'm going to do it anyway, with conditions. Name them. His tone was all business now. First, I want a contract that protects me legally if this goes sideways. Mia had stayed up researching what she was potentially getting into. Second, I want the money held in escrow, released to me regardless of how this ends. Done, Blake replied without hesitation. Anything else? Mia took a deep breath. If anyone asks how we met, we tell them the truth, that I'm a florist. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. There was a longer pause this time. That complicates the narrative. Take it or leave it, Mr. Harrington. Mia surprised herself with her firm tone. I'll play the girlfriend role, but I won't erase who I am. She heard what might have been a chuckle. Deal, Miss Lawson. My lawyer will draw up the paperwork today. His voice softened slightly. And thank you. After they hung up, Ruby poked her head in from the back room. Well, did you accept Billionaire Boy's insane proposal? I did, Mia confirmed, still not quite believing it herself. And I need Saturday off. Apparently, I'm attending the Montgomery Foundation Gala. Ruby's eyes widened. The one that's been in all the society pages? The one where you need to basically sell your kidney to afford a ticket? That's the one. What are you going to wear? Ruby demanded, practical as always. Mia's stomach dropped. She hadn't thought that far ahead. I have no idea. 3 hours later, a delivery arrived at the flower shop. A large white box tied with a black ribbon, accompanied by a note in now familiar handwriting. For Saturday, my stylist selected options. Choose whatever makes you comfortable. B. Inside were 3 designer dresses, each more beautiful than the last, along with matching shoes and accessories. Holy, Ruby breathed, touching the fabric reverently. That blue one probably costs more than my car. Mia stared at the dresses, reality finally sinking in. What have I gotten myself into? Saturday evening arrived with alarming speed, a car collected Mia from her apartment, delivering her to a discreet side entrance of the Plaza Hotel where Blake waited, impeccable in a tuxedo. His eyes widened slightly when she emerged from the car in the midnight blue gown she'd selected, a sleek off-shoulder design that made her feel simultaneously elegant and terrified. "You look," he cleared his throat. "You made an excellent choice." "Your stylist made an excellent choice," Mia corrected, fidgeting with her small clutch. "I'm just the mannequin." Blake frowned. "You're not a mannequin, Mia. You're my partner. In this. Partner in crime," she muttered, trying to calm her nerves. "Speaking of which, we should probably get our story straight. How long have we been dating? How did it progress from me being your florist to this?" Blake guided her toward a private elevator. 3 months. We met when I came into your shop for corporate event flowers. You were refreshingly unimpressed by me." His lips curved slightly. "We'll keep it as close to the truth as possible. It's easier to remember that way. And why would New York's most eligible bachelor hide a relationship for 3 months? Mia challenged. Blake's expression softened unexpectedly. "Because for once I wanted something that wasn't for public consumption. Something real." Mia blinked, caught off guard by both his words and the convincing sincerity with which he delivered them. "You're good at this." "At what?" "Making things sound true when they aren't." Something flickered in his eyes. "Part of the job." Before she could respond, he offered his arm. "Ready to scandalize Manhattan society?" Mia took a deep breath and slipped her arm through his. "As I'll ever be." The elevator doors opened directly into the glittering ballroom, and Mia had to force herself not to gasp. Hundreds of New York's wealthiest and most powerful citizens mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, draped in jewelry that could probably fund several small nations. "Blake!" A woman with an aristocratic bearing approached, air-kissing his cheek before turning curious eyes to Mia. "And who is your lovely friend?" "Margaret, this is Mia Lawson," Blake said, his hand settling at the small of Mia's back. The warmth of it was steadying. "Mia, Margaret Whitfield, chairperson of the Montgomery Foundation." "How delightful," Margaret said, though her eyes had cooled considerably. "I wasn't aware Blake was bringing a guest. Victoria will be so surprised." "Where is my fiancé?" Blake asked, his tone deliberately casual but his emphasis on fiancé unmistakable. Margaret's smile tightened. "By the ice sculpture with her parents." As they moved through the crowd, Mia whispered, "She doesn't seem thrilled about me." "Margaret is Victoria's godmother," Blake explained quietly. "And the room is already noticing us." He wasn't wrong. A ripple of whispers followed. In their wake, heads turning, phones discreetly raised to capture the unexpected couple. "There she is," Blake murmured, guiding Mia toward a stunning redhead in a champagne-colored gown who was engaged in conversation with an older couple. Victoria Montgomery turned as they approached, her green eyes immediately assessing Mia from head to toe. To Mia's surprise, rather than anger, Victoria's expression showed something closer to cautious interest. "Blake?" she greeted coolly, offering her cheek, which he dutifully kissed. "I don't believe I've met your companion." "Victoria, this is Mia Lawson," Blake introduced. "Mia, my fiancé, Victoria Montgomery, and her parents, Edward and Eleanor." Mia extended her hand, which Victoria took with perfectly manicured fingers. "A pleasure." "Indeed," Victoria replied, studying her intently. "And how do you two know each other?" Before Blake could answer, Mia spoke. "I'm a florist. Blake came into my shop for some arrangements and She glanced up at him with what she hoped was a convincing mixture of adoration and secrecy. Connected. Edward Montgomery's eyebrows shot upward. A florist? How charming. His tone made it clear he found it anything but charming. "Eleanor," Montgomery merely sipped her champagne, eyes narrowed calculatingly. "Mia's being modest," Blake said, his arm sliding around her waist in a gesture that felt surprisingly natural. "She's also an incredibly talented artist." Victoria's gaze moved, between them her expression unreadable. "Well, isn't this an interesting development?" She turned to her parents. "Perhaps you could give us a moment?" After the elder Montgomerys reluctantly moved away, Victoria leaned closer to Blake. "What exactly are you playing at?" she asked, voice low but not angry. "I'm simply introducing my guest to my fiancé," Blake replied innocently. "The fiancé I learned about at the same time as 300 of our closest friends." A hint of a smile touched Victoria's lips. "Touché." She studied Mia again. "He's using you, you know." Mia's heart skipped a beat, but she maintained her composure. "We're all using someone for something, aren't we?" Victoria's eyes widened slightly, then she actually laughed, a genuine sound that made several nearby guests turn in surprise. "I like her," she told Blake, before focusing on Mia again. "Word of advice, darling. Whatever he's paying you, double it. The Harrington men are notorious for undervaluing what they should treasure." With that cryptic statement, she glided away, leaving Mia stunned. "That didn't go as expected," she murmured to Blake. His hand was still at her waist, warm and steady. Victoria's always been too clever for her own good. "She knows this is a setup," Mia realized. "Is that bad for your plan?" "On the contrary," Blake said, watching Victoria across the room. "I think she just became our ally." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, champagne, and careful navigation of social landmines. Blake remained attentive, his hand rarely leaving some part of Mia, her back, her arm, their fingers intertwined. For the performance, she reminded herself each time her heart inexplicably quickened at his touch. By midnight, Mia's feet were killing her despite the surprisingly comfortable designer shoes, and she'd lost count of the scandalized whispers and not-so-subtle phone photos. "Mission accomplished?" she asked, as Blake escorted her to the waiting car. "Beyond expectations," he confirmed, looking genuinely pleased. "You were perfect." "I didn't feel perfect," Mia admitted once they were alone in the car. "I felt like an imposter." Blake studied her in the dim light. "You were the most genuine person in that room. That's why they couldn't look away." Something in his tone made Mia glance up, catching an expression on his face she couldn't quite read. For a moment, the performance fell away, and they were just two people, sitting close in the back of a car, the city lights playing across their faces. The moment stretched, charged with something unscripted, until Blake looked away. "We'll be in the society pages tomorrow," he said, his business voice returning. "From there, we escalate. I have 3 more events planned, each more public than the last." "Good," Mia replied, trying to ignore the strange sense of disappointment as their brief moment of authenticity vanished. "The sooner we complete this charade, the better." As the car pulled up to her building, Blake surprised her by getting out and walking her to the door. "You don't need to keep up the act when no one's watching," Mia pointed out. "It's not an act. It's common courtesy," he replied simply. "Thank you for tonight. You were..." He paused, seeming to search for the right word. "Extraordinary." Before she could respond, he leaned in and brushed his lips against her cheek, a kiss so light she might have imagined it, yet she felt its warmth long after he'd returned to the car and disappeared into the Manhattan night. Upstairs in her apartment, Mia carefully hung up the designer gown, trying to process the evening's events. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Blake. "Check your email, contract and first payment confirmation." And Mia? Victoria was right. "I'm doubling your fee." Billionaire Blake's blooming romance, tech tycoon caught in love triangle with florist and fiancé. The headline screamed from every newsstand in New York, accompanied by a photo of Blake gazing at Mia with what appeared to be undisguised affection at the Montgomery Gala. "This is surreal," Mia muttered, hiding behind large sunglasses as she hurried into the flower shop Monday morning. She'd spent Sunday holed up in her apartment, ignoring the sudden flood of social media follow requests and messages from school acquaintances who'd always known she'd make it big. Ruby waved a tablet at her the moment she walked in. "You're trending," her florist, "and the billionaire is actually a hashtag now. There are TikToks analyzing your body language." "Please stop," Mia groaned, hanging up her jacket. "It's all fake, remember?" Ruby raised an eyebrow. "Is it? Because this doesn't look fake." She showed Mia a close-up of Blake's hand at the small of her back, his eyes focused entirely on her while the glittering crowd blurred around them. "He's an excellent actor," Mia insisted, though the photo made her stomach do a strange flip. "It's all part of the plan." Ruby hummed skeptically. "And is being seen leaving his penthouse at 7 a.m. also part of the plan?" "What?" Mia grabbed the tablet, finding another headline. "Morning after. Harrington's mystery woman makes dawn departure." The accompanying grainy photo showed someone who could possibly be her entering a car outside Blake's building. "That's not me. I haven't been to his home." "The internet thinks otherwise," Ruby pointed out. "Your phone's been ringing nonstop, by the way. I finally turned it off." Mia found her phone behind the counter with 48 missed calls and hundreds of notifications. As she stared at it in horror, it lit up with Blake's name. "This is insane," she said, answering. "Have you seen the morning departure story?" "Yes," Blake interrupted, his voice tight. "It's not an accident." "What do you mean?" "Someone's accelerating the narrative," he explained. "My security confirmed no photographers were near my building this morning. That photo is either doctored or staged." "But why would anyone—" "I have some theories," Blake said grimly. "Are you free for lunch? We need to talk, and I'd rather not do it over the phone." 2 hours later, Mia sat across from Blake at a small, out-of-the-way bistro in Brooklyn, his choice surprisingly. He'd arrived wearing jeans and a simple button-down rather than his usual suit, with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. "The low-key disguise is new," Mia commented. "Necessary," Blake replied, glancing around. "The fabricated photo this morning changed things. Someone is trying to manipulate the situation." "Who would do that?" Mia asked, keeping her voice low. "My prime suspect is my father," Blake admitted, running a hand through his hair, a gesture Mia was beginning to recognize as a sign of his frustration. "He stands to gain the most if the Montgomery merger goes through." Mia considered this. "But wouldn't a scandal with me hurt those chances?" "Not necessarily. The Montgomerys care about their public image, but they care about money more. If Victoria backed out of the engagement citing my infidelity, the business deal could still proceed without the marriage clause." "That's cold," Mia said, shaking her head. "Welcome to my world," Blake replied, with a humorless smile. He leaned forward. "But here's where it gets complicated. That photo wasn't just released to the press. It was sent directly to Victoria." Mia's stomach dropped. And she called me this morning," Blake said, looking both confused and impressed. "She suggested we accelerate our timeline." "I don't understand." Blake's eyes held hers. "Victoria wants out of this engagement as badly as I do. She has her own reasons, which she hasn't shared, but she's proposed we make a public scene, one that would give her the perfect excuse to break things off while maintaining her dignity." "What kind of scene?" "She's hosting a charity auction at her family's Hamptons estate this weekend. She wants us to attend together." Mia nearly choked on her water. "You want me to show up as your date to your fiancé's event?" That's not a scene. That's a declaration of war. Exactly, Blake said with a nod. It's perfect. Victoria gets to publicly end our engagement with the moral high ground. I appear to be the villain who's moved on, and the Montgomery-Harrington business deal can be restructured without the marriage clause. Mia studied his face, trying to make sense of his calm demeanor. You don't seem upset about being cast as the bad guy. Something flickered in his eyes. I've been the villain in most people's stories for years, Mia. It doesn't bother me anymore. The simple statement, delivered without self-pity, made Mia's chest tighten unexpectedly. That's sad, she said, before she could stop herself. Blake looked genuinely startled. It's business. It's your life, Mia countered, and everyone deserves to be the hero in their own story. He stared at her for a long moment, an unreadable expression on his face. Finally, he cleared his throat. The Hamptons event will be more intense than the gala. Are you still in? Will there be more fake photos of me sneaking out of your apartment? Probably, Blake admitted. Once we commit to this plan, things will get messy before they get better. Mia took a deep breath. Then we'd better make it convincing. If I'm going to be labeled a homewrecker, I might as well earn the title. Blake's eyebrows shot up. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Mia said, surprising herself with her boldness, that we stop playing defense and start playing offense. If someone's trying to manipulate the narrative, let's take control of it ourselves. A slow smile spread across Blake's face, the genuine one that transformed his features and made him look younger, almost playful. Mia Lawson, you continue to surprise me. Good, she replied, ignoring the flutter in her stomach at his smile. Now, if I'm going to scandalize the Hamptons, I'll need another dress. The week passed in a whirlwind. As part of their new, offensive strategy, Blake began showing up at the flower shop daily, bringing coffee and lingering to chat, all while being discreetly photographed by conveniently present paparazzi. You don't need to keep coming by, Mia told him on Thursday as he helped her arrange roses. We've given them enough photos to last a lifetime. Maybe I enjoy the break from corporate life, Blake replied, carefully stripping thorns from a stem. Did you know I haven't checked my stock portfolio in 3 days? My financial advisor nearly had a heart attack. Mia laughed despite herself. The great Blake Harrington playing with flowers instead of millions. What would your board say? Probably the same thing they said when I canceled 2 meetings this week. That I'm distracted by my new relationship, he said with a grin. Which is exactly the impression we want to give. Right, Mia agreed, ignoring a twinge of something that felt uncomfortably like disappointment. The impression. By Friday, Ruby had become accustomed to Blake's presence, even putting him to work when they were busy. For a billionaire, you're not terrible with arrangements, she commented, as he completed a simple bouquet for a walk-in customer. High praise, Blake deadpanned, but Mia caught the pleased look on his face. That evening, as they closed the shop, Blake lingered. I'd like to show you something before tomorrow's event, if you have time. Curious, Mia agreed, following him to a waiting car. They drove into Manhattan, finally stopping at a nondescript building in Chelsea. Where are we? She asked as he led her inside. An art gallery owned by a friend, Blake explained, guiding her through darkened rooms until they reached a back area. He flipped on lights, revealing a small exhibition space. I thought you might be interested in this. Mia gasped. The walls were covered with children's book illustrations, vibrant, whimsical artwork that made her heart ache with recognition and longing. These are Eliza Barrington's originals, she breathed, moving closer to examine the details. She's one of my inspirations. How did you know? Blake shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. I might have done some research after you mentioned your illustrations. The gallery owner owed me a favor, so I asked for a private viewing. Mia turned to him, genuinely touched. Thank you. This means more than any designer dress." "I thought it might," Blake said softly. "Your face when you talk about your art. It's the most animated I've seen you." "More animated than pretending to be your scandalous girlfriend?" she teased. "Much more," he confirmed, his gaze lingering on her face a beat too long. "It's when you seem most yourself." Mia looked away first, suddenly aware of how alone they were in the quiet gallery. "Speaking of your scandalous girlfriend, what's the plan for tomorrow? Should I be extra clingy? Feed you champagne? Laugh too loudly at your jokes?" Blake chuckled. "Just be yourself, Mia. That seems to be working remarkably well at throwing my world into chaos." Later, as they stood outside her apartment building, an awkward moment ensued, the kind that often happens between people unsure of the boundaries between performance and reality. "Thank you for tonight," Mia said, breaking the silence. The gallery was perfect. Blake nodded, hands in his pockets. "I'll send a car tomorrow at noon. The drive to the Hamptons takes a couple of hours." "Blake," Mia said impulsively, "after tomorrow, when Victoria breaks the engagement, what happens then? To us, I mean. To this." She gestured vaguely between them. Something complicated passed across his face. "Then you get your payment as agreed, and you're free to pursue your illustrations without financial worry." "Right," Mia said, trying to ignore an unexpected pang of something that felt alarmingly like regret. "Of course." Blake leaned down and kissed her cheek, a gesture that had become a habit after their public outings, though no cameras were present tonight. "Good night, Mia." As she watched him walk away, Ruby's words echoed in her mind. "Is it fake?" For the first time since this charade began, Mia wasn't entirely sure of the answer. The next morning, Mia awoke to another tabloid headline, this one featuring photos of their gallery visit. "Art of Seduction, Harrington's secret date night, while fiancé prepares charity gala." But it was the smaller headline below that made her blood run cold. "Montgomery family friend reveals Blake's new girl is just a paid escort." Her phone rang immediately. Blake's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Have you seen it?" "Just now," Mia whispered, scanning the article that claimed an anonymous source close to the Montgomery family had revealed that Blake had hired Mia as part of an elaborate scheme to end his engagement. "I'm so sorry, Mia. I never anticipated they'd stoop this low." It's technically true," Mia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am being paid to be with you." "Not like this," Blake growled. "They're painting you as... I'll sue them for libel. I'll buy the entire publication and shut it down." His vehemence surprised her. "Blake, breathe. It's okay." "It's not okay," he insisted. "This crosses a line. We should cancel today." Mia looked at the offensive headline again, then at the stack of her illustrations on her desk, dreams she'd finally be able to pursue thanks to Blake's payment. Something hardened within her. "No," she said firmly. "We're not canceling. In fact, we're going to give them exactly what they're expecting." "What do you mean?" Mia found herself smiling grimly. "If they want a scandal, let's give them one they'll never forget." The Montgomery estate in the Hamptons was exactly as Mia had imagined a billionaire's summer playground would be. Sprawling oceanfront property, manicured gardens, and a mansion that could comfortably house her entire apartment building. "Remember, we can still turn around," Blake said as their car approached the grand entrance where valets and staff awaited the arriving guests. He'd been uncharacteristically quiet during the drive, checking his phone constantly. "Having second thoughts?" Mia asked, smoothing the emerald silk gown Blake's stylist had selected, bolder and more eye-catching than anything she'd worn before. "About subjecting you to this circus?" "Yes." His jaw was tense. That tabloid story crossed a line. Mia, reached across the seat and took his hand, a gesture that had become surprisingly natural over the past week. Hey, I knew what I was signing up for. No one signs up to be called a prostitute in the national press, Blake muttered darkly. True, Mia conceded. But today we set the record straight. Or crooked, as the case may be. She tilted her head. You still haven't asked what my plan is. A hint of his usual confident smile returned. I've learned it's better to simply follow your lead. As they exited the car into the flashing lights of photographers, Blake's hand settled at her waist. Warm, steady, and now familiar. They'd perfected their entrance over the past events. His protective stance, her slightly shy smile, their bodies angled toward each other as if they shared a secret. Only this time, Mia turned her face up to his and whispered, "Kiss me." Blake's eyes widened fractionally before he understood. Without hesitation, he lowered his head and captured her lips in a kiss that was meant to be for show, but somehow, immediately, wasn't. Mia had expected a performance, a calculated public display. What she hadn't expected was the gentle way. His hand cradled her face, or how perfectly they fit together, or the rush of warmth that spread from her lips to her toes. When they separated, the camera flashes had intensified to a near strobe effect, and Blake was looking at her with an expression of genuine surprise. Was that convincing enough? Mia whispered, trying to sound light despite her racing heart. Blake's voice was oddly rough. I think we made our point. Inside, the charity auction was underway in a grand ballroom overlooking the ocean. At least 300 guests in summer finery mingled among displays of luxury items up for bidding. Victoria, stunning in white, was at the center of it all, microphone in hand as she introduced the next item. Her eyes locked with theirs as they entered, a brief flash of acknowledgement passing between them, before she seamlessly continued her presentation. It was unnervingly like having a co-conspirator. Your fiancé is remarkably composed for someone about to cause a public scene, Mia observed. Victoria Montgomery was raised to maintain composure during a nuclear apocalypse, Blake replied. It's the Montgomery way. They made their way through the crowd, their entrance having caused the exact ripple of whispers and stares they'd intended. Margaret Whitfield, Victoria's godmother, approached with thinly veiled hostility. Blake, she said icily, deliberately ignoring Mia. I'm surprised by your audacity. Margaret, Blake nodded pleasantly. Have you met my date, Mia Lawson? She's a talented artist and florist. Yes, we've all read about Ms. Lawson's talents, Margaret replied with a cutting glance at Mia. Though I understand her services come with quite a high price tag. Mia felt Blake tense beside her, but she squeezed his arm in warning. This was her battle. Actually, she said with a pleasant smile, I've found that knowing your true worth and not settling for less is one of life's most valuable lessons. Wouldn't you agree, Ms. Whitfield? Margaret's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, William Harrington appeared. At their side. Son? He greeted Blake with a tight smile. And Ms. Lawson. What a surprise to see you here. Is it? Blake asked coldly. I'd have thought you arranged for our invitation yourself. William's expression remained placid. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. The doctored photos? The anonymous source to the tabloids? Blake pressed. Seems like someone is working overtime to manipulate this situation. Perhaps if you weren't so intent on sabotaging your own future, no manipulation would be necessary, William replied, his voice low but sharp. My future is not yours to design, Father. Blake's arm tightened around Mia's waist. William's gaze shifted to Mia, assessing her with cold calculation. And what is your stake in all this, Ms. Lawson, besides the obvious financial incentive? Mr. Harrington, Mia replied calmly, though her heart was pounding. Have you considered that not everyone makes decisions based solely on money? William's eyebrows rose slightly. How refreshingly naive. Enough, Blake cut in. We didn't come here to spar with you. No, William agreed with a knowing smile. You came to create a spectacle that would give Victoria grounds to end the engagement. I'm merely ensuring the spectacle serves the correct purpose. With that cryptic statement, he walked away, leaving Mia with a sense of unease. I don't like him, she murmured. Few do, Blake replied grimly. And he was right about one thing. We are here to create a spectacle. Mia glanced toward the auction stage, where Victoria was wrapping up the bidding on a luxury yacht trip. Then let's get to it. What's the most outrageous thing we could do right now? Blake's eyes scanned the room, settling on the auction items. A slow, mischievous smile spread across his face, the one that made him look like a completely different person from the cold CEO the world knew. I have an idea, he said, guiding her toward the bidding paddles. 20 minutes later, Victoria announced the final item of the evening, a week-long stay at the Montgomery family's private island in the Caribbean. Bidding starts at $50,000, she declared. Blake immediately raised his paddle. 100,000. A murmur went through the crowd. Overbidding was common at charity auctions, but doubling the opening bid was bold. Another paddle went up. 125,000. Blake didn't hesitate. 200,000. Victoria's composure slipped for a fraction of a second before she regained control. 200,000 from Mr. Harrington, due. I hear 250? 500,000, called a new voice. William Harrington's. The room went silent. Blake's face hardened as he stared at his father across the crowd. 1 million. Blake countered. The gasps were audible. Now, even Victoria seemed genuinely shocked. William's smile was thin. 1.5 million. What is he doing? Mia whispered. Calling my bluff, Blake muttered. His jaw worked for a moment before he raised his paddle again. 3 million. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Victoria, to her credit, maintained her professional demeanor, though her eyes kept darting between Blake and William. 3 million going once. William raised his paddle again. 5 million. The tension in the room was palpable. This had gone beyond a charity auction into something deeply personal. Blake hesitated, and for the first time since she'd met him, Mia saw uncertainty in his eyes. Then, to her shock, he reached for her hand and led her to the stage. Blake, what are you? But he was already taking the microphone from a startled Victoria. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to the silent crowd, I'd like to make a different kind of bid. He turned to Victoria, who was watching him with guarded curiosity. Victoria, he said clearly, I think we both know this engagement was never our idea or our desire. It was a business arrangement made by our parents without regard for our feelings or futures. He glanced at his father, whose face had gone dangerously still. I've come to realize that some things are more important than business deals or family expectations. He looked at Mia then, and something in his expression made her breath catch. I've also realized, he continued more softly, that sometimes the most valuable things come into our lives when we least expect them. Mia's heart was pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. This wasn't part of their plan. Blake was improvising, and she had no idea where he was going with this. He turned back to Victoria. I release you from our engagement, Victoria, not because of scandal or public opinion, but because we both deserve the chance to find genuine happiness. Victoria's professional mask finally cracked, revealing a flash of what looked like relief and gratitude. She took the microphone. I accept your release, Blake, she said, her voice steady despite the unprecedented situation, and I wish you both happiness. The crowd erupted in a chaos of whispers, exclamations, and the furious clicking of phone, cameras, William Harrington stood frozen, his expression thunderous. Blake guided Mia off the stage and through the crowd, ignoring the calls of their names and the questions shouted their way. His hand was firm around hers, his stride purposeful as they exited the ballroom into the evening air. "Blake," Mia finally managed as they reached the garden, away from the immediate chaos. "What was that?" He stopped, running a hand through his hair, that now familiar gesture of agitation. "That was me ending the engagement. Isn't that what we wanted?" "Yes, but..." Mia struggled to articulate the confusion swirling inside her. "Not like that. You made it sound like..." "Like what?" he challenged, suddenly intense. "Like there was something real between us," she whispered. Blake's face was unreadable in the garden's dim lighting. Would that be so terrible? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither had dared voice until now. Before Mia could respond, Victoria appeared, slightly breathless from having followed them. "Well," she said, a genuine smile breaking through her usual reserve. "That was certainly more dramatic than I anticipated." Blake turned to her, apologetic. "Victoria, I'm sorry for the spectacle." "Are you kidding?" Victoria interrupted with a laugh. "Blake, you just gave me exactly what I wanted. Freedom." She glanced over her shoulder toward the ballroom. "Though, I think you've given your father an aneurysm in the process." "He'll survive," Blake said dryly. "The question is, will the business deal?" Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "The merger will proceed. My family wants your technology patents too badly to walk away. They'll just have to find another way to ensure loyalty." She turned to Mia with unexpected warmth. "I should thank you, Ms. Lawson. Whether this was all an elaborate charade or something more." Her knowing glance flickered between them. "You've helped free us both from a fate neither of us wanted." With that, she kissed Blake's cheek and squeezed Mia's hand before walking back toward the mansion, leaving them alone in the garden. She knew, Mia realized, the whole time. "Victoria has always been perceptive," Blake agreed, "and apparently as eager to escape this arrangement as I was." A new tension settled between them. The need to address what had just happened on that stage. The words Blake had spoken that went far beyond their scripted plan. "We should probably leave before my father causes a scene of his own," Blake suggested, clearly avoiding the subject. Mia nodded, disappointed but unsure of what she'd expected. This had always been a business arrangement with an expiration date. The fact that her heart was now complicating matters wasn't Blake's problem. The drive back to the city was mostly silent, both lost in their thoughts. As promised, Blake had successfully ended his engagement without damaging Victoria's reputation. Their mission was accomplished. The charade could end. So why did it feel like something important was slipping away? As they approached Manhattan, Blake finally broke the silence. "About what happened tonight." "It's okay," Mia interrupted, quickly, unable to bear hearing him explain that it was all part of the performance. "You got caught up in the moment, I understand." "Do you?" His voice was oddly strained. The car pulled up outside her apartment building before she could respond. Mia gathered her courage and her dignity. "Thank you, Blake," she said formally, "for everything. The remainder of my payment will be transferred as agreed," he finished, his business mask firmly back in place. "You fulfilled your end of our arrangement admirably." Mia nodded, ignoring the ache in her chest. "Then I guess this is goodbye." She expected him to brush her cheek with a kiss, as he had so many times before. Instead, he simply offered his hand, a businesslike conclusion to their transaction. "Goodbye, Mia Lawson," he said as she stepped from the car. "I wish you success with your illustrations." The formality of it stung more than she wanted to admit. As the car pulled away, Mia stood on the sidewalk, feeling strangely hollow despite the successful completion of their plan. Upstairs in her apartment, she carefully removed the emerald gown, hanging it in her closet alongside the other designer dresses, beautiful reminders of a fantasy that had never been real. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ruby. "Just saw the news." "What happened?" Followed immediately by another. "Are you okay?" Mia sank onto her bed, staring at the messages. The truth was, she didn't know if she was okay. She'd just helped end a billionaire's engagement, earned enough money to pursue her dreams, and somehow lost her heart in the process. "Mission accomplished," she texted back. "Tell you tomorrow." She was about to put her phone down when it buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made her freeze. Children's Illustration Portfolio Review. It was from one of the top publishing houses in New York, one she'd submitted to months ago and never heard back from. "Dear Ms. Lawson," it read, "your portfolio has been brought to our attention, and we would like to invite you to meet with our children's book division next week to discuss possible projects." Mia stared at the email in disbelief. She hadn't submitted anything recently. The only person who knew about her illustrations aside from Ruby was Blake. "You're telling me Blake Harrington, the same man who just publicly ended his engagement to Victoria Montgomery in the most dramatic way possible, secretly submitted your portfolio to Fisher & Reed Publishing?" Ruby demanded, pacing Mia's small living room the next morning. Mia nodded, still staring at the email she'd read at least 20 times. "It has to be him. No one else knew about my submissions or rejections. And you haven't called him about it? What would I say?" Mia sighed, hugging a pillow to her chest. "Thanks for using your billionaire influence to get me a meeting that ordinary mortals wait years for?" Ruby stopped pacing. "Yes, exactly that, minus the sarcasm." "Our arrangement is over, Ruby," Mia said quietly. "He made that very clear last night." "Did he? Because sending your portfolio to publishers doesn't sound like the action of someone who considers your relationship over." Ruby sat beside her on the couch. "What exactly happened at that charity event? The videos online only show the public part." Mia described the confrontation with William, the bidding war, and Blake's unexpected speech on stage. "He made it sound like..." She trailed off, unable to articulate the hope that had briefly flared in her chest. "Like he has actual feelings for you," Ruby finished. "Because he does. It's obvious to everyone except apparently you two idiots." "It was all an act, Ruby," Mia insisted, though the words felt hollow even to her own ears. "A very convincing performance. Then why did he help with your illustration career? That wasn't part of your deal, was it?" Mia had no answer for that. Ruby picked up Mia's phone and thrust it at her. "Call him." "I can't." "Fine." Ruby stood up decisively. "Then I'm taking you out. You need fresh air and perspective. Get dressed." "Where are we going?" "Central Park. It's a beautiful Sunday morning, and you're not sitting here moping." An hour later, they were strolling through the park, Mia trying to focus on Ruby's chatter about an upcoming flower exhibition, when she suddenly stopped dead, in her tracks. There, on a bench near the lake, sat Blake Harrington, alone. No suit, no security detail, just jeans, a simple sweater, and a distracted expression as he tossed crumbs to eager ducks. "That's..." Mia whispered. "Holy crap," Ruby breathed. "It's him." Blake looked up, as if sensing their stares, and his eyes locked with Mia's across the pathway. For a moment, neither moved. "I'm going to get coffee," Ruby announced abruptly. "From that vendor way over there. I'll be at least 20 minutes. She gave Mia a not-so-gentle push forward before walking away. Slowly, Mia approached the bench. Blake stood, looking as uncertain as she felt, an expression she'd never associated with the confident CEO. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "I come here sometimes," he replied, "when I need to think." "About your next corporate takeover?" The attempt at humor fell flat. "About what I said last night," Blake answered, his gaze direct. "And what I didn't say." Mia's heart fluttered treacherously. "Blake." "I received an interesting call this morning," he interrupted. "From Victoria." Of all the things she expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. "Oh?" She seemed concerned that I might have, and I quote, "messed things up with the florist." A hint of his familiar smile appeared. "Apparently she finds our genuine chemistry refreshing and thinks I'd be a fool to let you go." "Victoria, Montgomery is giving you relationship advice?" Mia couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. "Ironic, isn't it?" Blake's smile faded to something more serious. She also mentioned that her family approved the restructured merger this morning, without the marriage clause. "So you got everything you wanted," Mia said, trying to ignore the pang in her chest. Blake shook his head. "Not everything." The simple statement hung between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. "I got an email last night," Mia said finally. "From Fisher & Reed Publishing. They want to see my portfolio." "That's wonderful," Blake replied, his expression carefully neutral. "Your work deserves recognition." "Did you have anything to do with it?" she challenged. A pause. Then, "I may have shown your illustrations to a friend who sits on their board." "Why?" "Because you're talented, Mia." His voice was suddenly intense. "Because your art deserves to be seen. Because in all my life I've never met anyone who looks at the world the way you do." Mia swallowed hard. "I thought our arrangement was over." "It is," Blake confirmed. "Your final payment was transferred this morning, as agreed. You've fulfilled your contractual obligations admirably." "Then why are you here?" Mia asked, needing to hear him say it. Blake took a step closer. "Because, somewhere between fake kisses and real conversations, I stopped pretending. And I hope, you did too." Mia's breath caught. "What are you saying, Blake?" "I'm saying that for the first time in my life, I want something that has nothing to do with business or family expectations or corporate strategy." His voice softened. "I want you, Mia Lawson. The florist who challenged me, surprised me, and somehow made me believe I could be more than the villain in everyone's story." Tears pricked at Mia's eyes. "This isn't in our contract." "No," Blake agreed, reaching for her hand. "This would be something new, something real." "Real relationships are messy," Mia warned, though her fingers intertwined with his of their own accord. "And I won't fit into your world of galas and billion-dollar deals." "Maybe I'm tired of that world," Blake said, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Maybe what I need is more flowers and children's illustrations and someone who sees past the ruthless billionaire headlines." Mia searched his face, looking for any sign of the performance they'd perfected over the past weeks. Instead, she found only raw vulnerability, the real Blake Harrington, not the mask he showed the world. "No more contracts?" she asked softly. "No more contracts," he promised. "Just us, figuring it out as we go." "The tabloids will have a field day," Mia pointed out. "Let them," Blake said with a dismissive shrug. "I've stopped caring what they think." "Your father will hate it." A mischievous grin, the one she'd grown to love, spread across Blake's face. "That's just a bonus." Mia couldn't help but laugh. "You're impossible." "And yet, here you are," Blake countered, pulling her closer. "Does that mean you're willing to try this? For real this time?" Instead of answering, Mia rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. Their first truly private kiss, with no cameras or audience to perform for. It was softer, sweeter, and infinitely more real than any they'd shared before. When they parted, Blake looked slightly dazed. "I'll take that as a yes?" "Yes," Mia confirmed, her heart lighter than it had been in days. "But I have conditions." Blake's eyebrow arched. "Of course you do. I keep my job at the flower shop," she stated. "At least until I see if this publishing thing works out. I need my own identity, separate from being Blake Harrington's girlfriend." "Agreed," he said without hesitation. "What else?" "No more elaborate schemes or fake relationships," Mia continued. "From now on, we're honest with each other." "Brutally honest, I assume, given your tendency to call me out," Blake said with a grin. "Agreed. Any other terms for this non-contractual arrangement?" Mia pretended to think. "You have to help with flower arrangements when we're busy." "I've become quite skilled with roses," Blake boasted. "Ruby said I wasn't terrible." "High praise," Mia teased, echoing his words from days before. As they sat together on the bench, watching the ducks paddle across the lake, Mia marveled at the strange journey that had brought them here. From a business arrangement to something neither of them had expected to find. "What are you thinking?" Blake asked, his arm comfortably around her shoulders. "That this would make a terrible business plan," Mia admitted. "Falling for the person you hired to be your fake girlfriend? It's the plot of a cheesy romantic comedy." "I've always hated romantic comedies," Blake mused. "Too predictable." "And how's this one turning out?" Mia asked, leaning into his warmth. Blake tilted her chin up, his eyes soft with an emotion neither of them had been ready to name before. "Better than I could have scripted," he murmured, before capturing her lips again. In the distance, Ruby stopped pretending to examine a flower, vendor's wares, and snapped a quick photo of the couple by the lake. This one wouldn't make the tabloids, but it would make a perfect how they really got together story for future anniversaries. 6 months later. "I still can't believe this is happening," Mia whispered, staring at the display in the bookstore window. There, front and center, was The Duck Who Didn't Fit In, her first published children's book, with her illustrations, bringing the story to life in vibrant color. "I can," Blake said, squeezing her hand. "Your work is extraordinary," says my completely unbiased boyfriend, Mia teased, though the pride in his eyes made her heart swell. "I'm a businessman," Blake countered. "I only invest in excellence." They'd fallen into an unexpected rhythm over the past months. Mia had kept her job at the flower shop while working on her illustrations, and Blake had surprised everyone, including himself, by scaling back his CEO responsibilities to focus on the charitable foundation he'd neglected for years. The tabloids had eventually grown bored with their story, especially after William Harrington's surprise retirement and Blake's decision to restructure the company with a focus on sustainable technology. Victoria had sent them a magnum of champagne when the Montgomery-Harrington merger was finalized, along with a note that simply read, "Worth every dramatic moment." "Ready for your signing?" Blake asked as they entered the bookstore where a small crowd of parents and children was already gathering. "Terrified," Mia admitted. "What if they hate it?" "Impossible," Blake assured her. As Mia took her seat at the signing table, she caught sight of Ruby giving her an enthusiastic thumbs up from the back of the crowd. Beside her stood Victoria. Montgomery, who had unexpectedly become a friend and early investor in Mia's small publishing venture for underprivileged artists. Life had taken unexpected turns for everyone involved in their charade. The store manager introduced Mia, and as she began reading her story to the captivated children, her eyes found Blake's. He was watching her with that same expression she'd first glimpsed at the Montgomery Gala, genuine admiration untainted by performance or pretense. Later that evening, as they walked hand in hand through Brooklyn toward their favorite little restaurant, a compromise between Blake's penthouse world and Mia's more modest one, Mia reflected on the strange path that had led them here. "Penny for your thoughts?" Blake asked. "I was just thinking about contracts and arrangements," Mia replied with a smile, "and how sometimes the best things happen when the plan falls apart." Blake stopped walking, turning to face her with sudden seriousness. "Speaking of arrangements," he said, reaching into his pocket. "I was going to wait until dinner, but—" Mia's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box. "Blake, this isn't in our original contract," he said with a smile that was both nervous and certain. "And it's not part of any business deal or family expectation. It's just me, asking if you might consider a new, lifelong arrangement." He opened the box to reveal a ring that somehow managed to be both elegant and artistic, exactly her taste. "Mia Lawson," Blake said softly, "will you marry me? Not for show or for business, but because somehow a fake relationship turned into the most real thing in my life?" Tears blurred Mia's vision as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, "but I have conditions." Blake laughed, slipping the ring onto her finger. "Of course you do. We write our own vows. No corporate speak allowed." "Agreed. And absolutely no arranged marriages for our future children," Mia added with a teasing smile. "Definitely agreed," Blake said, pulling her close. "Anything else?" Mia wrapped her arms around his neck. "Just one more thing. Kiss me like there are no cameras watching and no one to perform for. Kiss me like it's just us. And in the middle of a Brooklyn sidewalk, with the sun setting behind them and their unexpected future stretching ahead. That's exactly what he did."